Hello and welcome to the next chapter in our series, Pocket Production. My name is Ryan Wilcox and I'm a media consultant in the Duderstadt Center at the University of Michigan. And in this session, we're talking about shot composition. Shot composition is something we typically take for granted since we watch TV and videos all day, every day. It's not until you start shooting videos yourself that you realize that maybe you should pay attention to how the shots are composited. Creating a nice looking shot for video doesn't have to be difficult, but there's a few things to think about along the way. What type of shot do you want? There are basically 4 shots that are discussed in film and video production: wide shot, medium shot, close-up, and extreme close-up. Wide shots are frequently used to help establish a location. You can see the person standing in their environment as well as the look and the shape of the room or the space in which they're standing. Remember, since a video is a series of dots creating the image, the farther away from the person you get, the less detail you will see. From there, we move on to the medium shot. This is the traditional neutral shot. Not too far away, not too close. Very simple. It's good for interviewing, works well for the shot following a wide shot, so you can now see the person in better detail and still see the environment around them. A close-up is terrific when you need to show emotion. Video is a close-up medium. If you want to see the guilt in the face when a character is accused, or hope to see the joy they feel when given a compliment, a close-up is a great shot. Now remember, you're pretty much ignoring the background, but you can't forget about it. Just because a person's head is taking up the majority of the screen doesn't mean you can't see something unusual going on in the back of the shot. Lastly, we have the extreme close-up. This is for drama. The quick shot of the killer's eyes as they peek in from a window. They're really fun shots and can be very effective, but you do not need to use them that often. Once you've decided on the type of shot you're looking to use, you'll want to concentrate on the framing of this shot. Here, we use the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds has been around since the beginning of photography. Heck, since the beginning of framed art has existed. If you divide your shot into these 9 windows, you will have a guide as to how to help you set up your shot. Typically, you'll place the focal point of your image in one of these intersecting points. And there's a couple of reasons why we typically shoot this way. First, you can see that this fits the dynamic of the Fibonacci sequence. It's something we recognize as beautiful and a pattern we see in nature every day. Second, it allows us to guide the direction of the action. If I am placed in this intersecting point and my eyes looking off in this direction, it leads your attention that way. An accompanying shot would likely have a focal point looking right back at me. Hey, how's it going? I'm great, thanks for asking. You would do this with 2 people having a conversation or someone looking at a significant object. If you frame yourself on one of the other intersecting points and continue to look off the screen in the same direction as before, you will now be able to guide the eyes of the viewer off the screen. This goes back to old newspaper days. All the photos would always face the center of the page. Because if your eyes left the page, you might get distracted and put your paper down and walk away. Couple of last notes on framing. You may have noticed that I have been right in the center of this shot for most of this video. I've not been following the rule of thirds, but again, there's a reason. I am addressing you, the viewer at home. I'm already breaking the 4th wall by looking directly into the camera and addressing my audience at home. This is how we typically frame a shot like this. If you're in an interview scenario, 2 people are talking to each other. Therefore, applying the rule of thirds makes sense. However, I am addressing you. I don't have a specific direction to look except right at your lovely faces. Lastly, there are many directors out there that do not use the rule of thirds. Wes Anderson and Stanley Kubrick are 2 of the most obvious. They intentionally don't follow the rule of thirds because they're looking to create a specific look in their shots. It's fine to do this. However, we always feel it's good to know the rules that you're breaking. The angle of your shot can also help tell your story. You already know this deep down within you, but you are more attractive when the camera is a little bit higher than eye level and looking down at you. The light helps to brighten your eyes, and smooth out any wrinkles or double chins you may have, and it helps to thin out your face. And that's why it's received a name in recent years. It's the selfie angle. Intuitively, we use this angle because we know we look better this way. We typically tend to place the camera slightly above eye level and point the camera down towards our subjects. Now, don't go up too far or you'll start to get the no angle. Even if you don't go that far, a camera positioned too steeply downwards can resemble a parent talking down to a child. Slightly above eye level or directly at eye level is considered the most neutral. This is great for interviews or informational pieces. We want the person to look good and not influence what they are saying by positioning the camera at such an unusual angle that you appear to be a parent looking down at a child or child looking up at a parent. Psychologically, this can influence the credibility of the subject in the shot. Next, please pay attention to the entire shot. No matter how much time you spend making your subject look perfect, you have no control over what the audience will be looking at while they are viewing your video. When I'm setting up an interview, I'll position the camera on a tripod slightly above eye level and pointed slightly down at the person I'm working with. Even though they may look better in this situation, it's also the perfect time to view power receptacles, extension cords, dust bunnies, sandwich wrappers, the bottom of garbage cans, that sort of thing in the shot. Take the time to look at the entire shot and make sure that there's nothing that will distract you from the topics at hand. This is frequently why directors use what's called a prime lens for shooting. That's how you get those really great blurry backgrounds. It also hides those details so the viewer is only looking at specifically what the director wants. Shooting like this with a phone or video camera is more difficult because it's much more difficult to get shots like this. You do have to ultimately work with your surroundings. You don't want to see a power strip on the floor? Adjust the angle to eliminate it. Seat the person farther away from the wall so that a floor is not your background. Put a desk behind them with something pleasant but not distracting sitting on the desk. And since we're talking about using mobile devices to shoot videos, well, just don't do this. Hey there, everyone. I'm reporting to you from our audio studio at the Duderstadt Center, and I'm doing something that I don't do very often. I am holding the phone in portrait mode. Unfortunately, we see more and more people, when using their phones to record video, hold it in the portrait mode. They don't mean any harm by it or anything like that, but what they don't realize is that while you can turn a picture like I would a photograph, you can't really turn the image the same way. It doesn't respond the same way when turning it. And so you also lose, when the image is in this regard, 30% of the image on this side of your screen and 30% of the image on this side of the screen. Let's just not shoot this way down the road. How does that sound? Great. If you end up shooting this way, I'll likely have a video up soon to help you work with vertical footage. Next up, stabilizing the camera. Here's the catch. Shooting with your phone is really, really simple. You can hold it in one hand, have a coffee in the other. However, handheld camera shots are used in movies and TV to generate confusion and excitement. That's why many of the battle scenes have the camera jumping around. It's harder to follow the action, therefore everything's a little bit more chaotic. Conversely, a stable camera shot can create thoughts of credibility and stability in the subject. It's not really possible to hold this little guy in a stable way. Here are some more tips and tricks for generating a more stable camera shot. When you have to go handheld, here's what I suggest. Stand with your feet about shoulder width apart, one foot in front of the other, and place your camera close to your chest with your elbows tucked into your side. Heck, lean against a wall if you're able to. Lastly, don't try to zoom in. Close and wide is much more stable than far away and zoomed in. With this setup, you can accomplish a relatively stable shot. It's not as nice as a mounted camera, but it's not terrible. Depending on what you have in the room with you, you can likely find something to prop a phone against to create a shot. There's a couple catches with this. A phone will either be angled upwards towards the person or placed on a tabletop that's ultimately a little bit too low for the shot. This just may not be the best way to frame someone, but it will certainly work in a pinch. I actually carry a large binder clip with me for this exact situation. Super fast support for my phone. There are a lot of different tripod mounts that you can purchase. These range in cost. I am sensitive to the budget that many students live off of, so I don't have this very high on my list. But this will give you a lot of additional options for a good-looking, stable shot by having a tripod available to connect your mobile device. Heck, with a small portable tripod, you can even create the poor person's Steadicam. By placing the tripod in this position, all the weight of the setup is hanging well below the camera itself, making the image much more stable while shooting. Lastly, there are devices like a 3-axis gimbal. This introduces a significantly more stable image to your handheld shots, but the cost is by far the most expensive option that I've shown. These work well for moving shots, but all in all, I really like a nice stable shot when given the chance. While we're here, I wanted to discuss longer tracking style shots or the potential for moving the camera around while shooting. I'll frequently get asked about moving a camera in a car to capture a large-scale event like a convention or a gallery opening, or to get a large panoramic view of a village in a valley. There are really great times to create a long shot, but you want to plan them out. What I frequently see is a bouncy camera. As someone walks down a hallway, they move the camera all over the place to make sure to include everything, but as a result, you can't really see anything. And we don't get the impact or details of what the creator of the video is actually trying to show us. Long tracking shots can be difficult to do properly. It is much easier in the edit suite to take several short shots and put them together to get the same effect. You can get several close-up shots of the pieces you want to include, get them from interesting angles, and focus on them for a moment or two before moving on to the next shot in your montage. It typically feels like more work to get several shots rather than just drive down the street, but the additional shots will paint a much better picture. Don't forget to get both close-ups and wide shots of the object you're shooting. That way you can focus on what you want the audience to see from multiple views. If you need to do a long shot, here's how I recommend approaching it. If driving in a car, hold the camera against the door or the window frame. We try to compensate the bounces in the car by counterbalancing the camera with our hands, and it just creates double bumps. It makes it worse than before. You can use things like a skateboard or a wheelchair or a smooth rolling cart to do really nice looking shots. Use the poor man's Steadicam or a gimbal attachment in conjunction with these skateboards or wheelchairs or carts. Walking tend to be a little slow unless you're just establishing the scene. If you're doing a slow move in while you approach your room, that's fine to get a 5 or 6 steps in along the way. So we've talked about shot composition, the rule of thirds, shot angles, how to keep the shots stable, and working with long panning or tracking shots. We've talked about when to use these types of shots and when to break the rules. I do hope this has been informative. Now get out there and record something. My name is Ryan Wilcox, and I'll see you at the next session.